right, everybody, I'm teaching you today about feedback loops. So we're going to look at positive feedback loops first. I've given you a couple of everyday examples, not necessarily something that relates to anything that we're going to study, so that way you can have a better field of view of this. So positive feedback loops don't necessarily mean something positive is going to happen. So keep that in mind, okay? Don't equate positive feedback loop with positive results. That's not how it works. A positive feedback loop does this. It continues to feed inside of itself. So if we start here, we say, okay, disrupted sleep increases fatigue. So let's say last night you heard the birds chirping at 4 o'clock in the morning, and many of you guys are just going to sleep at that time. Let's say the birds started chirping and your sleep was disrupted, okay? And then you had fatigue diminishes ability to cope with stressors in a healthy way. So you get up and you're miserable. And your parents say, okay, today's the day you're cooking supper, today's the day you're cleaning your room. You're not going to cope well with that because you didn't get enough sleep. And then you go to bed angry. You have an inability to cope with stressors that disrupts your sleep, and it just continues to feed into itself, okay? So again, picture something happening during the night. You can't deal with your stress during the day on a regular school day. Let's pretend things are back to normal. And then something at school happens that really bothers you, that's bothering you, and you don't sleep well. So you can see there's nothing positive about this, but it just keeps amplifying the result, okay? So that's something you want to consider, it's amplifying. In terms of positive feedback loops, here's another one. Okay, so let's say you get a cow that gets afraid of something. So you've got a herd of cattle, and something frightens one cow. Well, then the cow starts running. Other cows look, they start to get panicked. So a couple more cows start to run. Then you've got increased number of cows running, increased panic level. And that's exactly what happens with cattle, okay? So one gets scared and then a whole bunch of them start running. Not a good situation. All right, and now when we get to a negative feedback loop, I'm not going to waste time this semester because we don't have the liberty of having that time, right? 3 hours a week caps me on what I can do with you. So I'm going to teach you thermoregulation and negative feedback loops on the same day. So tomorrow you're going to see that you're going to have a very short lesson. It's not even a lesson. I'm just assigning some work to work on thermoregulation. It's because I'm taking care of negative feedback loops and thermoregulation right now. So what I want you to know about this is that this is a negative feedback loop. So please consider this. If you're going to print this diagram off, highlight here. I wish I knew how to highlight. I do know how, but I'll probably just panic like the cows right now and not highlight the right thing. So over here, this is a negative feedback loop, okay? So negative feedback loop up here, and this is another negative feedback loop down here. So even though it looks like it's all feeding into the same thing, I want you to be aware what this diagram shows you are two feedback loops. So let's just start over here. And we start with normal body temperature, okay? And I'm going to work on the upper feedback loop. So feedback loop A up to this point, if you want to highlight. And then feedback loop B is down here, okay, if you want to highlight that in a different color. So we have a normal body temperature, and body temperature is anywhere between 35.6 to 37.8, okay? And as time moves on, they're actually saying that our body temperatures are getting lower. Okay, so just a little something I could throw into that I throw at you that I would normally tell you in a lesson. Body temperatures are lowering as we evolve because we are fighting infection less and less, ironically, in this pandemic. But because our teeth are cleaner, basically this is what people have discovered recently. Way back when our bodies had to run higher because we had more gingivitis, more bacteria in our teeth. If you increase oral hygiene, you're going to decrease your body temperature. Not you personally, but as a species, we are decreasing our body temperature. We don't have to run as hot to kill those bacteria in our mouth. So normal body temperature is probably going to be in the 36 range for many people. All right, so normal body temperature there. If we have a stimulus that we're going with increases body temperature, so we're going to get hotter, okay? So we're approaching July and June, the beautiful warm months. Go outside and it's very, very hot. Let's say you decide you want to go for a run. Well, your body temperature is going to warm up beyond its hypothalamic point. So on the page tomorrow, on your LMS page, I'm going to just have a little picture of a hypothalamus. That's because the hypothalamus is the part of the brain that is in charge of body temperature. Okay, and so that's why you're going to see that little diagram there. So the hypothalamus kicks in, and what it does is two things. We've got plan A and plan B, or plan A and plan B, whatever, however you want to look at it. There are two plans. In the hypothalamus over here is activated, and we're going to do two things. So number one, the one you would think of is you're going to sweat. So your sweat glands are activated so that you can lose water, not because you want to dehydrate, but because as you take water off of the body and evaporate it, evaporation requires heat. And so you're going to lose body temperature. You're going to lose heat when you evaporate water. So that's why you sweat. The other thing that you're going to do is you're going to dilate your capillaries. So skin blood vessels dilate. So dilating means getting bigger. So you're going to look flushed, all right? So the blood is going to come closer to your skin because the capillaries are getting larger, expanding, and you can see that. You're going to flush, and the reason you're doing that is so that you can lose your body temperature, lose some of that heat through your skin, okay? Body temperature will decrease. The hypothalamus is happy. The heat loss center shuts off, and then you go back to homeostasis, okay? So in other words, this is negative because if we start here with a hot temperature, we're going to go back to a regular temperature, and then the whole system shuts off. This is why it's a negative feedback loop. We don't just keep doing this over and over again. When we reach our desired point, we shut off, okay? That's why it's negative. Here's another negative feedback system. All right, if we're going to go here, then we're going to say you are getting cold. There's an imbalance in homeostasis. So now it's January and you're cold, okay? Your blood is colder. Your hypothalamus is not happy with that, so it turns on again. So hypothalamus controls body temperature. It activates heat promoting centers in the hypothalamus. So you're going to do two things, okay? Your skeletal muscles are going to start to move. Why? Because then you can generate heat. So again, going back to that run example, if you're running in July, your body's going to go through the other feedback loop that I just went through with you. If you're running in January and you're really, really cold when you step out the door, probably not going to be cold for too long if you're going for a run, because as soon as you activate these skeletal muscles, then you're going to warm up, because using that those muscles require cellular respiration, and cellular respiration is not 100% efficient. We lose energy as body heat. And so that's what you're doing. So as you generate your body temperature, as you move these skeletal muscles, you're going to be generating some heat. So not using the run example, it means you're going to shiver. Okay? So why do you shiver? So that you can move muscles and generate heat. The other thing you're going to do is not flush. You're going to start to look a little bit blue sometimes. Lips get blue. What we do then is we constrict our blood vessels. So this is vasoconstriction. The other one at the top, hopefully I'm not confusing you too much, this is vasodilation. All right, so V-A-S-O, dilation is what you do when you are too hot. When you are too cold, you go through vasoconstriction. And so that's what you would see here. And so you're going to constrict your blood vessels. They're going to move away from the skin. Blood is going to be withdrawn from the surface, and it's going to be really, blood flow is going to be activated towards your inner core. All right, so you're going to keep your core warm, which would be the most important parts of your body, because you've got your organs in there. Okay, the most important organs for survival. So in other words, increase blood flow to the lungs, the heart, the liver, etc. Decrease it from the fingers and the toes, because in the event there's not enough heat in your surroundings, you can afford to lose a toe or a finger, even a hand. You cannot afford to lose your vital internal organs. All right, and then so God forbid that should happen, you now will end up saving heat. Your body temperature will go up with the shivering and the vasoconstriction, and you return back to normal body temperature, and then the feedback loop ends there, okay? So we could say the feedback loop starts here with an imbalance and ends here. All right, so negative feedback loops have a beginning and an end, and the initial stimulus is not how you end up in the end result, all right? And do I have another one here? Yes, I do. So I like this one here on negative feedback, because it goes through and it actually shows you that you will end with increased blood pressure. So if your blood pressure drops, you have receptors, okay? Receptors in the heart, etc., in the aorta, instruct the body on what to do, and you can just go through this. The medulla oblongata is in charge of blood pressure. So it controls what's happening and it sends out a response. Okay, and once the response has been effectively completed, then you have increased blood pressure. All right, so if you would like to, you could just, sometimes I say to people, just get rid of this, okay? Because when you see this, I mean, it's completely accurate, but when you see this arrow, sometimes you think, okay, this looks just like that positive feedback loop because she's just going in a circle. So if you want to get rid of all of this, that's okay. These gray arrows and this here, all it's telling you is you go back to normal. So truly the negative feedback loop goes from here all the way down here, okay? Because we've got low blood pressure at the beginning, low blood pressure to high blood pressure, increased blood pressure. We're not saying high, but back to a good blood pressure, all right? So negative feedback loops end with a different result than they start with. Positive feedback loops just keep feeding into the system, all right? And there's nothing negative about this result. It gets you what you want, your blood pressure back to where it should be.